Some memories never fade. They have fur, bright eyes, and the gift of loving us without saying a word. Because every dog carries a story, and maybe a part of yours. Get ready to discover more than a breed. Discover a lifelong companion.
June 16, 2016, Cypress, Texas. A 16-year-old golden retriever walks slowly down the corridor of the Texas A&M University Veterinary Clinic. Her paws no longer as steady as they once were, but her eyes still gleaming with the determination that made her a legend. Uniformed firefighters line up at attention, an honor guard for one who dedicated her life to saving other lives. Bretagne didn't know she was making history once more. She was the last living 9/11 rescue dog, and her departure would mark the end of an era. But our story doesn't begin here. It begins 15 years earlier, when a golden puppy of just 2 years old was about to witness and participate in the most devastating event in modern American history. Texas, 1999. Amid the vast Texas fields, a litter of golden retrievers was born, destined for something far greater than backyard games. Bretagne, named after the French region, was just another golden puppy, but there was something special in her alert eyes and insatiable curiosity. Denise Corliss, a firefighter and rescue specialist with Texas A&M Task Force 1, never imagined her life would change completely when she met that bright-eyed puppy. As part of the FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, Search and Rescue Dog Program, Denise was looking for a partner who could work alongside her in the most extreme situations. She was different from day one, Denise would recall years later. While the other puppies played or slept, Bretagne observed everything with an intensity I had never seen before. It was as if she knew she had a greater purpose. Training began early. At 6 months, Bretagne already demonstrated exceptional abilities. Her concentration capacity was extraordinary for such a young dog. During training sessions, she quickly learned to identify different scents, navigate difficult terrain, and most importantly, never give up on a search. The Texas A&M Task Force 1 program was rigorous. Only dogs with the best physical and mental qualities could qualify for urban search and rescue missions. Bretagne didn't just pass all the tests, she excelled at them. At 18 months, she was already certified for search and rescue operations. Her specialty was finding people alive in rubble, a skill that would soon be tested in the most dramatic way possible. September 11, 2001, 8:46 a.m. Denise was at home, preparing for another day of training with Bretagne, when the phone rang with an urgency she immediately recognized. From the other end of the line, a tense voice informed, "We have a situation. Prepare for immediate mobilization." At that moment, neither Denise nor Bretagne knew they were about to respond to the largest terrorist attack on American soil. While images of the burning towers played on television, the duo was already heading to the airport, along with Texas A&M Task Force 1. The flight to New York was tense. Bretagne, sensing her partner's altered energy, remained alert throughout the entire journey. She had been trained for many situations, but nothing could have prepared her for what she would find at Ground Zero. Upon arriving in New York, in the early hours of September 12th, the scene awaiting them was apocalyptic. Where the twin towers of the World Trade Center once stood majestically, there was now only a gigantic mountain of smoking debris, twisted steel, and pulverized concrete. The air was thick with toxic dust and the acrid smell of destruction. Bretagne stepped down from the transport van, and immediately her senses were bombarded by a cacophony of smells and sounds. Sirens, shouted commands, the noise of heavy machinery working, and beneath all of this, something that only she and the other dogs could clearly detect, the scent of buried people. "Bretagne, work," Denise commanded, using the word that signaled the beginning of a search mission. The golden retriever, though still young, immediately understood the gravity of the situation. Her playfulness and distractions were left behind. It was time to work. Ground Zero was a deadly labyrinth of twisted steel, fragmented concrete, and debris stretching for acres. The temperature of the rubble still reached over 600 degrees Celsius in some spots, and toxic vapors constantly rose from the pile of wreckage. Bretagne was assigned to work on the so-called pile, the mountain of debris where the towers once stood. Equipped with special boots to protect her paws from sharp steel and extreme temperatures, she began her first search in a scene that seemed straight out of an apocalyptic movie. The work was methodical and exhausting. Bretagne climbed over unstable steel beams, crossed dangerous holes, and investigated every space where a person could be trapped. Her nose, millions of times more sensitive than a human's, could detect signs of life even under tons of concrete. During the first days, there was still hope of finding survivors. At each alert bark from Bretagne, rescue teams rushed with heavy equipment, carefully removing debris in the hope of finding someone alive. Unfortunately, as days passed, searches for survivors gradually transformed into recovery missions. But Bretagne never gave up. Even when others began to lose hope, she continued working with the same dedication. For her, each person found was a victory, a life that could return home to the family waiting for them. The work was physically brutal. Bretagne's paws, even when protected, were injured by the sharp debris. Her golden coat turned gray from the toxic dust that covered everything. Her eyes constantly watered due to chemical vapors, but she never backed down. Denise watched her partner with growing admiration. Bretagne worked with a determination I had never seen before, she would say later. It was as if she perfectly understood the importance of what we were doing. Each search was a sacred mission for her. During the 2 weeks they remained at Ground Zero, Bretagne worked 12-hour shifts daily, but her role went beyond search and rescue. Without realizing it, she was offering something equally vital: hope and emotional comfort. Exhausted firefighters who had been working for days without adequate rest found moments of relief in Bretagne. When she approached with her tail wagging, even covered in dust, her eyes still gleamed with a pure joy that contrasted dramatically with the devastation around them. It may seem strange, but seeing Bretagne there, doing her work with such dedication, gave us strength to continue, recalled an FDNY firefighter years later. It was as if she reminded us that there was still goodness in the world, even amid so much destruction. During rest breaks, Bretagne transformed. The professional and focused dog gave way to the playful golden retriever she still was. She rolled in the grass of nearby parks, one of the few clean areas in the region, played with other rescue dogs, and received affection from workers who found in her a moment of normalcy. But perhaps the most touching moment happened on the 8th day. A team had found the remains of an FDNY firefighter buried in the rubble. The body was removed with all the ceremony and respect it deserved, but the colleagues were visibly shaken. Bretagne, as if sensing the emotional weight of the moment, silently approached the group of firefighters. Without any command from Denise, she sat beside the mourning men and simply remained there, her presence offering comfort that words could not express. At that moment, I understood that Bretagne was not just a search and rescue dog, said Denise. She was a therapist, a companion, a ray of light in our darkness. After 2 intense weeks at Ground Zero, Texas A&M Task Force 1 was officially dismissed. The searches for survivors had officially become recovery operations, and other specialized teams took command. The flight back to Texas was different from the journey there. Bretagne, exhausted physically and mentally, slept during almost the entire trip. Denise watched her partner and wondered how that experience would affect them in the long term. Back in Texas, life tried to resume some normalcy, but both Denise and Bretagne now carried the weight of having witnessed one of the darkest moments in American history. For Bretagne, who didn't understand the political or social implications of what had happened, the experience was processed more directly. She had done her job. She had helped when it was needed. In the following months, Bretagne continued training and participating in other rescue missions. She worked in Texas floods, building collapses, and other emergency situations. Each mission added more experience to her already impressive resume, but nothing compared to those 2 weeks in September. The media began paying attention to the hero dogs of 9/11. Bretagne, along with other rescue dogs, was publicly recognized for her service. She visited schools, participated in ceremonies, and became a 4-legged ambassador for the search and rescue dog program. But behind all the public attention, Denise noticed subtle changes in her partner. Bretagne had matured rapidly. The young, playful dog still existed, but now there was a seriousness in her eyes, a deep understanding of her role in the world. Years passed, and Bretagne continued serving with distinction. She became a respected veteran in the world of search and rescue dogs, training younger dogs and participating in emergency preparedness exercises. In 2005, when Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans, Bretagne, now 6 years old, was mobilized again. The Ground Zero experience had prepared her to deal with large-scale devastation, and she worked tirelessly in the contaminated waters and debris left by the storm. Bretagne was at her peak at that time, Denise recalled. She had developed extraordinary intuition. She could read situations and make decisions that saved precious time during searches. It was as if she had absorbed all the knowledge from years of experience. During Katrina, Bretagne again demonstrated her versatility. In addition to searches in rubble, she worked in aquatic operations, finding people trapped in flooded basements and alerting teams to locations that needed immediate attention. But perhaps her most significant contribution was the effect she had on disaster victims. Children who had lost everything found comfort in her presence. Adults traumatized by the disaster smiled for the first time in days when they saw Bretagne. The years from 2006 to 2010 were filled with regular missions, training, and public recognition. Bretagne became a known figure in the first responder community, not only for her work on 9/11, but for her consistent career of service. During this period, she also began working as a therapy dog, visiting hospitals and schools. Her gentle nature and calming presence made her perfect for this type of work. Sick children lit up when she entered hospital rooms, and anxious students calmed down during her school visits. In 2011, at 10 years of age, Bretagne Bretagne was officially entering old age for a dog of her size. Denise began noticing subtle signs that her partner was slowing down. Jumps over obstacles were no longer as agile, and she needed more rest time between training sessions. The decision to retire Bretagne from active service was one of the most difficult in Denise's career. For more than a decade, they had been an inseparable team. The idea of working with another dog seemed almost like a betrayal. Bretagne had given everything of herself to service, Denise explained. She deserved a dignified retirement where she could simply be a beloved dog without the pressure of missions. But retirement didn't mean complete inactivity. Bretagne continued participating in public events, visiting schools as a therapy dog, and helping train new rescue dogs. Her role had evolved from operational to educational and inspirational. During this period, Bretagne became something of a local celebrity in Texas. Her story inspired not only children, but adults who saw in her an example of dedication and selfless service. She visited hundreds of schools, where she taught children about the importance of teamwork, perseverance, and compassion. One of these school visits was particularly memorable. An 8-year-old girl, daughter of a firefighter who had died on 9/11, met Bretagne during a presentation. The child, who had struggled with nightmares and anxiety since her father's loss, spent an entire hour hugging the golden dog. It was as if Bretagne knew exactly what that girl needed, said the teacher who organized the visit. She remained completely still, letting the child lean on her for as long as necessary. It was one of the most touching moments I have ever witnessed. In 2015, Bretagne made her last official trip to New York. At the invitation of the 9/11 Memorial, she returned to Ground Zero for the first time in 14 years for a special ceremony honoring all the rescue dogs that worked after the attacks. The trip was carefully planned. At 15 years old, Bretagne needed special considerations for travel. Denise was worried about how her old partner would react to returning to the place that had marked both their lives so deeply. Arriving in New York, Bretagne seemed to sense something familiar in the air. Her posture changed, becoming more alert, as if old memories were being awakened. When they arrived at the memorial, she walked slowly to the reflecting pools that now mark where the towers once stood. It was surreal to see her there, Denise recalled. For a moment, it was as if she was again the young 2-year-old dog who had worked in the rubble. Her eyes gleamed with the same recognition. During the ceremony, Bretagne was presented as the last canine survivor of 9/11. Of the hundreds of dogs that worked at Ground Zero, she was the only one still alive. The weight of this responsibility seemed visible in her dignified posture as she received the honors. National media extensively covered the visit. Bretagne was interviewed through Denise by major television networks and newspapers. Her story touched millions of Americans who saw in her a tangible symbol of heroism and dedication. But perhaps the most significant moment of the visit happened away from the cameras. Bretagne was taken to meet some FDNY firefighters who were still active. Some of them had worked at Ground Zero and remembered her. Others were too young to have been there but knew her legend. A veteran firefighter, who had lost many colleagues in the attacks, knelt down to be at Bretagne's height. With tears in his eyes, he said, "Thank you, girl. Thank you for everything you did for us." Bretagne, with her silent wisdom, simply placed her paw on the man's hand. The beginning of 2016 brought worrying signs. Bretagne, now 16 years old, a very advanced age for a large golden retriever, began showing clear signs that her health was deteriorating. She had difficulty getting up in the morning. Her mobility was severely limited, and it was obvious she was suffering. Denise, who had shared 15 years of life with her partner, faced the most difficult decision of her life. As a veterinarian, she knew professionally when an animal's quality of life was compromised. As a companion, her heart refused to accept the inevitable. "Bretagne had given me so much over the years," Denise said in a later interview. "She had dedicated her entire life to service, always putting work and the people we needed to help above her own comfort. Now it was my turn to put her first. The decision was made. It would be better to let Bretagne leave with dignity before her suffering became unbearable." The date was set for June 16, 2016, at the Texas A&M University Veterinary Clinic, where Bretagne had been trained so many years before. But Denise wanted the farewell to be special. She contacted firefighters and other emergency professionals who had known Bretagne over the years. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Firefighters from all over Texas, and even from other states, confirmed their attendance to pay a final tribute to the four-legged heroine. June 16, 2016 dawned hot and sunny in Texas. At the Texas A&M University Veterinary Clinic, an extraordinary scene was unfolding. More than 100 firefighters, paramedics, police officers, and other first responders lined up along the corridor leading to the procedure room. Bretagne, carried in Denise's arms, made her last official walk. Each uniformed professional stood at attention, an honor guard for one who had served alongside them for more than a decade. The walk was slow and silent. The only sounds were Denise's soft footsteps and, occasionally, a contained sniffle from someone fighting back tears. Bretagne, despite her frailty, kept her head high, her eyes still alert, as if she knew the importance of that moment. In the middle of the corridor, a young golden retriever was being trained to follow in Bretagne's footsteps. When the two met, There was a magical moment of mutual recognition. It was as if the torch was being symbolically passed from one generation to the next. In the procedure room, Bretagne was gently placed on a padded stretcher. Denise remained by her partner's side, stroking her golden head and whispering words of gratitude and love. "Good girl, Bretagne. You were the best partner anyone could ask for. You can rest now." The procedure was peaceful and dignified. Bretagne simply closed her eyes and completely relaxed for the first time in years. There was no more pain, no more obligations. The last canine heroine of 9/11 had completed her final mission. Bretagne's death was reported by media outlets around the world. Newspapers, television stations, and news websites dedicated considerable space to telling her story and honoring her memory. She had become more than just a rescue dog. She was a symbol. The National September 11th Memorial and Museum in New York issued an official statement mourning her death and recognizing her contributions. Bretagne represented the best of the American spirit, the statement said. Her courage, dedication, and unconditional love inspired a nation and will continue to inspire future generations. Texas A&M University established a permanent memorial in her honor. A bronze statue was commissioned showing Bretagne in her characteristic work posture, alert and focused. The plaque at the base of the statue lists her major missions and ends with a simple but powerful phrase, "She never gave up." Denise, although devastated by the loss of her life partner, found a new mission: preserving and sharing Bretagne's legacy. She began speaking at schools, universities, and professional conferences, telling her partner's story and inspiring others to pursue careers in emergency services. Bretagne taught me that true heroism is not about seeking recognition, Denise explained in her lectures. It's about doing what's right, even when it's difficult, even when no one is watching. It's about never giving up looking for those who need help. In the years following Bretagne's death, her story continued to inspire new generations of rescue dogs and their trainers. The Texas A&M Task Force 1 program, where she had been trained, saw a significant increase in the number of candidates interested in following her footsteps. Many specifically cited Bretagne's story as their inspiration. "I want to make a difference the same way she did," said a young firefighter who enrolled in the program in 2017. "She proved that no matter how small you are, you can have an enormous impact." Rescue dog training has evolved significantly since Bretagne's days, incorporating new technologies and techniques. But the fundamental principles she exemplified, tireless dedication, courage in the face of danger, and unconditional love for the people they serve, remain at the heart of the program. Several other rescue organizations across the country also reported increases in public interest after Bretagne's death. Her story had reminded people of the vital importance of search and rescue work and the special role that dogs play in these operations. Children in schools across the country wrote letters to Denise, expressing admiration for Bretagne and interest in working with animals when they grew up. A 10-year-old girl wrote, "Bretagne showed me that being brave doesn't mean not being afraid. It means doing what's right, even when you're scared." To fully understand Bretagne's legacy, it's important to comprehend the extraordinary science behind search and rescue dogs' abilities. A dog's sense of smell is approximately 10,000 to 100,000 times more sensitive than humans, with over 300 million olfactory receptors compared to our mere 6 million. Bretagne had been specifically trained to detect the scent cone, the cone of smell that forms when human odors disperse through debris and air. This ability allows dogs like her to locate buried people even under tons of wreckage. But beyond physical capability, Bretagne possessed rare psychological characteristics that made her exceptional. Her perseverance was legendary. She continued searching even when other dogs gave up. Her ability to maintain focus in chaotic and stressful environments was extraordinary. Later studies on 9/11 rescue dogs, including Bretagne, helped refine selection and training criteria for future generations of working dogs. Researchers discovered that the most successful dogs combined high intelligence with emotional stability and an intrinsic motivation to work. Bretagne didn't work for food or praise, explained Dr. Sarah Johnson, an animal behavior specialist who studied rescue dogs. She worked because she genuinely wanted to help. This intrinsic motivation is what separated great dogs from exceptional ones. 15 years after 9/11, studies began examining the long-term psychological impact not only on human first responders, but also on the dogs that worked at Ground Zero. Bretagne, being one of the most well-documented cases, became an important study subject. Interestingly, veterinarians who followed her over the years noted that she never showed signs of post-traumatic stress, a condition that affects many humans who worked at the scene. Her ability to process traumatic experiences and continue functioning normally fascinated researchers. "Dogs like Bretagne teach us a lot about resilience," observed Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a veterinarian specialized in working animals. "They have a remarkable ability to live in the present, not to carry the emotional weight of past experiences the same way humans humans do. This natural resilience may have been one of the factors that allowed Bretagne to maintain such a long and productive career. While many human 9/11 first responders struggled with mental health issues in the following years, Bretagne continued working with enthusiasm and joy. Denise, on the other hand, admits to having struggled with her own demons related to that experience. Seeing Bretagne continue being herself, even after everything we lived through, was a constant source of inspiration for me, she said. She taught me to focus on the good we could do, not on the tragedies we had seen. During her lifetime, and especially after her death, Bretagne received numerous formal recognitions for her service. The American Kennel Club included her in its Hero Dogs Hall of Fame. FEMA created an annual award in her honor, given to the rescue dog that demonstrates exceptional qualities of courage and dedication. The state of Texas proclaimed June 16th as Bretagne Day, an annual tribute to all service animals that dedicate their lives to helping others. The chosen date, the day of her death, was deliberate. A way to transform a day of loss into a day of celebration and recognition. In 2018, an official biography of Bretagne was published, with all royalties directed to organizations that train rescue dogs. The book became a bestseller, introducing her story to a new generation of readers. Hollywood also paid attention. Several film projects were developed based on her life, although Denise was careful to approve only projects that portrayed Bretagne and her work with accuracy and respect. "It's important that her story be told correctly," said Denise. Bretagne wasn't just a pretty dog who did tricks. She was a serious professional who saved lives and dedicated her existence to service. Any representation of her needs to honor that truth. Today, 8 years after Bretagne's death, her influence continues to spread like ripples on a lake. At Texas A&M University, young recruits still learn about her during their first weeks of training. Her story has become part of the official curriculum, a concrete example of the ideals the program hopes to instill. Dogs who never knew her personally carry her legacy on their collars. Trainers around the world cite her methods and work ethic as standards to be followed. Her name has become synonymous with excellence in the field of search and rescue. At Ground Zero, now transformed into a serene and reflective memorial, visitors from around the world come to honor those who were lost and those who risked everything to help. Few know that a golden retriever with bright eyes once walked among those ruins, tirelessly searching for signs of life. Denise, now retired from active service, dedicates her time to telling Bretagne's story. In every lecture, in every interview, she emphasizes the same message. Bretagne wasn't special because she was a famous dog. She was special because she never forgot why she was there: to serve, to help, to never give up. The last official photo of Bretagne shows her sitting calmly next to her memorial statue, as if approving the bronze representation of herself. Her eyes, still bright at 15 years old, seemed to look beyond the camera, perhaps seeing something only she could perceive: the promise that others would continue the work she had begun. Somewhere in Texas, a young golden retriever is learning to navigate artificial obstacles, being trained to detect human sense in controlled situations. She doesn't yet know she's following in the footsteps of a legend. She doesn't know she's being prepared to be the next Bretagne. But when her time comes, when the sirens sound, when the emergency van departs toward the unknown, when she takes her first steps in a disaster zone, she will carry with her not only her training, but the immortal spirit of a golden retriever who proved that heroism comes in all shapes and sizes. Bretagne's story reminds us that in our darkest moments, light can come from the most unexpected sources. Sometimes all we need is a pair of hopeful eyes, a wagging tail, and a heart that refuses to give up. Bretagne, 1999-2016. Heroine. Partner, friend, legend. Her final mission was to teach us that true heroism doesn't reside in the pursuit of glory, but in the silent willingness to serve no matter the cost. And in that final mission, as in all others, she was an absolute success. The echo of her pause on the Ground Zero rubble may have silenced, but the impact of her service resonates forever, an eternal reminder that even in humanity's darkest hours, there is always reason for hope, always a reason to keep searching, always a reason to never give up.